Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Jason.
Thank you. My teacher, we always wait a little bit, see if we get participation. Thank you. Let me start by saying thank you to all of you for being here. This is just a really exciting time, really a great time to be a Hoban student, great time for the community. So I want to say thank you to all of you for being here and for your continued support of Hoban. A quick thank you for Todd and Emily and everything they've done to get this program up and off the ground. Couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to Mike and also to Vicky Srail, where's she at? For everything you've done to make tonight possible. I think the place looks great, as I fully expected it would. But also thank you for always being, open ears and open offices for me whenever I need to run something by you. So thank you as well. I want to thank my parents for being here tonight and take this moment to formally recognize that just a few days ago it was my dad's birthday. And since he's into his later 70s, he wants to make sure that everybody knows that as often as possible. So happy birthday, Dad. And of course, the man of the hour, Jim Mccool. Before I had a chance to meet Jim, his reputation had already preceded him. Everyone told me what a great guy this is. You're so fortunate to meet him, to work with him, and just wait till you have a chance to get to know this guy. And really, he's lived up to everything that they've had to say about him. Jim's just a wonderful human being, incredibly generous, very, very bright, hardworking. So thank you for everything you've done to make this a reality, Jim, truly. Thank you. So, while we are dedicating the center tonight, the class has been up and running for the past 2.5 months. And in that time, a lot of really cool things have happened. But before I get into talking about the class, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about education in general. In preparing for this role, teaching the class and directing the center, I went to a number of conferences. One of those conferences, which stood out to me, I was introduced to a guy named Ted Dintersmith. Has anyone heard his name before? It's okay. Ted Dintersmith was an educator, is now a writer, and also a filmmaker. He wrote a book called What School Could Be, and also made a very powerful documentary called Most Likely to Succeed, which I highly recommend if you have about an hour of time and a few dollars. Take a look at this documentary. Really powerful and interesting stuff. And I bring that up because Ted likes to talk about our current educational model, which is going on 130 years old now. Think about that for a second. How much has changed in the last 130 years? This is going back to the 1890s. This is before cars were on the roads. This is before light bulbs were common. In fact, I think this is just a few years after the first commercially viable light bulb was created. This is back in the day when Brother Joe and Brother Ed were still in college. I miss those guys. But in that time, with all these changes, the way we deliver education has largely been unchanged. We borrowed the system from the Prussians. Think about that, Prussia, back around the 1890s. Brought it here, and really haven't done much since. That's not to say that teachers aren't doing amazing things in their classrooms, which they are. And that's not to say that I want to be critical of this system. I think that it did a great job preparing students for the 20th century, for an industrial society. But I think we all know very clearly that the 21st century looks to be very different than the 20th century. Jim mentioned it a little bit. Todd mentioned it when he was talking for a little bit. Automation, technology, the ability for machines, robots to do the tasks that humans used to be able to do, this is accelerating at a more and more rapid pace. And I don't say that to make people feel nervous. A lot of folks feel nervous when they hear that. I don't think it's something to be scared about. I think it's something to be excited about. But it's also something to be very prepared for. And that's a big part of what went into designing this class and what will continue going into designing this center. What are these 21st century skills that we need to prepare students with? And it turns out that those skills mirror entrepreneurial skills. In fact, Todd said a lot of the same ones I'm about to say now. Skills like public speaking, collaboration, the ability to listen actively to others, self-confidence, self-awareness, the ability to influence, negotiate, and persuade others, design, innovation, and I think the mother of all of these skills, empathy. No matter how hard we try to teach a machine, I don't think that they'll ever quite feel what it's like to be a human being or be able to see from the perspective of another. which is why that skill is so incredibly important, but more on that in a bit. So when students come into my class, I try to make it as much as I can an unclass. This isn't a class with a textbook or notes or standard tests. There is homework, but generally the homework is done in journals. I want students to go out and do it. As I like to say, the world is your laboratory. Go out and experiment. Or the world is your playground. Go out and have some fun with it. And then write about the results. Talk to us about the results. What did you find out from trying this new skill that you learned about in here? If we're going over collaboration, maybe the students will come in and build towers out of spaghetti and marshmallows. And after they're done, they feel very excited about how tall their tower is, but that wasn't the point of the exercise. The point of this exercise is instead to ask yourself, what do I do when I get into a group? Do I lead? Do I stay quiet? Do I put my head down and get to work? Was it the people I was with? Can I do better? Can I be the leader next time? These are the questions I ask students to reflect upon after they're done building their towers and then writing their journals, which sometimes we talk about and sometimes it's just for them. I hope they go back and review it. Recently, to work on negotiation, we did a game called Bigger and Better. Bigger and Better starts with every student having a paperclip, or a rubber band if they chose, and then spending a week trying to trade this for something bigger and better. Then at the end of the week, we see what they come up with. There's a great TED Talk about this, by the way, with a guy who ended up with a house. None of our students quite went that far. Actually, just curious, Abby, what did you end up with? Not to call you out.
A granola bar.
A granola bar.
It was pretty good, though.
Bigger and better. Cam?
Pencil sharpener with an eraser on it.
With an eraser, everybody. Nick?
Rubik's Cube.
A Rubik's Cube, very nice. Hunter?
A few pencils.
A few pencils, awesome. What about Ayaka?
YSL lipstick.
That's right, you had the lipstick. And then Bridget?
10 Band-Aids and a Band-Aid dispenser.
10 Band-Aids and a Band-Aid dispenser. All very good. I'll tell you who I thought won the contest was probably a student who came in with a signed Browns jersey. I think you might know him. Signed Browns jersey, which definitely bigger. Better, I'm not so sure, but definitely bigger. Still kind of impressive. But these are the types of things that we do in class. We pick a skill, we do an activity to get the students excited about the skill, go over what it can do for you, and then it's all about go out and try it. Go out and play around with it. See what you come up with. That's not to say there aren't large projects, though. There are 3 entrepreneurship projects that take place during the year. The first was about social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship, for those who don't know, is essentially trying to solve a social problem by creating an enterprise or a venture. So it's not about just throwing money at the problem or looking at the state to solve it, but rather creatively trying to solve this problem through an organization. One of my favorite examples was from Evan Seiler, who's sitting over there. Evan is a talented entrepreneur because he is an entrepreneur. Ask him when you have a moment about his magazine company, unless he's already told you about it. And he'll just light up and tell you. Very, very bright student, knows as much as there is to know in some ways, at least for a 17-year-old? 16-year-old to know about business. But he's experienced it. He's gone out and done it. Evan's idea was a micro-lending bank to be held here in Akron called Rubber City Lending. And I loved it. I thought it was a great idea. But even better was his branding, the website that he built, and even the commercial that he made. All of them were professionally made and just really, really impressive. Once again, if you have a chance, please talk to Evan about these, and I'm sure if he has his iPad, he'd be happy to show you. Our second entrepreneurship project is about a local venture, something realistic. What can students do to take advantage of solving problems at the Hoban community, or in the Hoban community? Students, teachers, staff, whomever. At this point, they're working on those. They'll be pitching them in 2 weeks. Hopefully, to a small panel of judges. So to give you an example of some of the ideas, some common themes were a coffee shop. No less than 5 different groups are working on bringing a coffee shop to fruition. Evan, of course, being Evan, has already submitted an executive summary, met with Dr. Ramos over here, and it looks like we very much might have a coffee shop next year run by students. Aside from that, we see a lot of students trying to work on lunch lines with pre-ordering services. A lot of students going after pens and pencils being constantly lost, whether it be rental, whether it be, I guess, rental. Vending services, pencil and pen vending machines. And also students taking on uncharged iPads, which is a thorn in the side of every teacher. One of my favorite groups, a couple of girls are working on a solar charger, which would be possibly sold to furniture stores to put into desks. And I didn't realize solar chargers work with fluorescent lights. And Mr. Perro, that's, yeah, I didn't want to say something stupid right there, but I guess that is true. And they've actually been working with Mr. Perro over here in the Innovation Center, which is our dream. This is what we want to see happen. And they created an MVP, a minimum viable product, for those of you who know the lean startup lingo, which is really awesome. In 2.5 months, we have our first MVP. They're creating it, they've wired it, and they're testing currently to see if it will actually charge an iPad. They'll be pitching those soon. At the end of the year, May 21st, I think, is the day we have set aside. Don't quote me on that just yet. Okay, you can quote me on it, Vic, you gave me the nod. May 21st is when we're going to do our first Hoban Shark Tank. So this will bring together the top pitching students from the classes. Looks like about 7 groups will participate. And this is a anything goes kind of entrepreneurship activity. This isn't necessarily social, though it can be, nor is it at Hoban. Though it is somewhat small cap, we're looking for startups that require less than $7,000. So if any of you are interested in being sharks, I already know I have at least one volunteer. Thank you, Phil Brennan. But if any of the rest of you are interested in being sharks for that event, there are cards on my desk, or please talk with me today. But there will also be an email coming out soon. But I'm looking forward to that being a really exceptional event. A couple other things I want to mention real quick before I close is we just took a field trip to Bounce, which is a small business incubator / software accelerator. If you haven't seen what they're doing over there, do yourself a favor, take a look at their social media presence or their website. Just a really awesome Akron initiative. Really, really impressive stuff. I was a little bit nervous going in there. What will 50 students will be able to have a good field trip here? But it was an incredible experience. Bill Manby, who's back there, put this together for us, so thank you very much, Bill. We got to play with virtual reality goggles. We did a little bit with augmented reality, and the kids just lit up. Incredibly excited. They came back and they couldn't even have their round tables because they were so excited they wanted to keep talking about it. So it was a really, really great trip. Also, I wanted to mention that we just did our first Small Business Friday. And Small Business Friday is a way for us to invite in local business owners to actually talk to the students. Let's get them engaged with actual business owners, and maybe some opportunities will arise from it. Who knows? I would like to see some internships eventually. Our first guests were John and Tara Chimura. They own a bow tie / tie company called H-Bomb Ties. I might mention that today is World Autism Awareness Day. And the reason I invited John tonight, John's sitting right over here, the other gentleman wearing a bow tie, blue bow tie for autism awareness, is because this is a social venture in many ways. John and Tara, their son Harrison, who's 10 years old, was born with Downs and autism. As you can imagine, it's difficult for kids like Harrison, as they grow up, to find steady employment. So John put this together as a way to provide that. John and Tara put this together as a way to provide that for their son. And they hope to grow it to the point where they can hire other kids with disabilities. It takes a long time for them to learn these skills, and so let's get it going while they're younger. I'm dangerously close to making that same child labor joke that you were making earlier, so I'm not going to do that for. But again, teach them these skills when they're younger so that they can eventually get involved in this. So if you have a chance, please feel free to talk with John. It was a great experience. The students learned about not just the path to starting up a business, but of course the daily trials, the difficulties, the costs, and all about the social media marketing. That really lit the students up, I think. John is kind of a numbers nerd, and so he really, told them all about the analytics, all the things you could see, who's clicking on your ad, exactly what demographics are looking at the things, how do you target these specific demographics, and what the right stuff to put on social media is. What was that line you used? Document, don't create. Document, don't create. Turns out people like to just see what's going on in your life, and they love to see what's going on with Harrison. So I encourage you to talk with John for a moment, or at least check out H-Bomb Ties on their website or their social media platforms. So as you can see, a lot has happened in 2.5 months, and we're just scratching the surface. The center and the class are kind of the same thing right now, but eventually they're going to go in separate directions next year. The class will remain the class, which I wanted to mention that we already have we have 65 students in the class right now. Without any promotion, 65 kids signed up for this. So there is a desire for entrepreneurship here. Next year, we hope to see rotating student startups as a part of what we can make happen. We're looking for seed money. Hopefully GAR comes through. Hint, hint, wink, wink. We also would like to put together a speaker series. And ultimately, Jim and I have been looking into a software suite called Bright Idea. And this would enable an administrator, in this case probably being me, to post constant opportunities for students to engage in challenges or pitch contests. This could involve leadership or creativity or design. This could be daily, weekly, monthly, could be a big-time annual pitch. So Bright Idea, I think, has all sorts of really great applications at the high school level, and we're working on bringing that here. That will also be a part of the center. Our goal is to make entrepreneurship a part of the Hoban culture. We want all students in every class to experience this mindset. And how great would that be? If within a class, they can take what they're learning and apply it to a venture, or at least apply the mindset. So let me leave you with one final thought. As Jim mentioned, he and I talked a lot about this. This is not an intro to business course nor center. We don't want to get bogged down in those types of details. Those students will learn some of those things. Instead, this is about entrepreneurship and leadership, which are, at their hearts, about empathy and service. They're about doing service to others. That's why they fit so well here at Hoban High School. It's about serving your fellow human beings. What can I do? Where's my empathy? What can I do to make someone else's life better? How can I improve the lives of others? Not what I think is great, it's what they would think is great. And that's what entrepreneurship is really all about. So we hope to equip students with 21st century skills that will enable and inspire them to seek the problems of others, as was mentioned, design innovative solutions, and then have the courage and leadership abilities to make a positive impact, whether or not that's in their organizations, in their families, in their communities, or of course for their customers if they do indeed start a small business. And of course, on top of all that, we hope such students will embody the same generosity and desire to serve others that makes a place like this possible. Thank you all for being here.